Hi everyone, I'm Andrew the Asperger King, and today we're going to be reacting to the video Gaming is for the Rich by Legendary Drops. Let's get into it.
Imagine being blamed for not buying enough when they're the ones that are making everything too expensive to buy. How many of you guys have been sitting around asking, when is this going to stop? It's now got to the point where the price to just live, let alone even buy a video game, is getting out of the reach of damn near everyone.
Everything's
And now
so
we have
damn
PlayStation
expensive now.
raising their prices for the second time in less than a year, $100 across the board. And this is coming off of the tail of other price increases that we've seen already throughout the entire industry. Nintendo, Xbox, PC gaming hardware. It just feels like it won't stop. All these guys are sitting around, these executives, talking about how all these price increases are supposed to feel inevitable. Like it's just a bridge that we have to cross, but that bridge is now turned into an escalator that the vast majority of people cannot afford to get on. None of this is necessary. They're all lying to you. Every single one of them. They can cry AI, they can talk about market headwinds, they can talk about shortages or inflation or whatever they want, but at the end of the day, all this is these are companies that do not want to take any accountability. They would much rather hand over and pass down their mistakes to you, the customer, and make you pay the cost of it.
The greedy fucking executives and wanting us to pay more for fucking everything. God damn it.
They have taken our dedication, they have taken our loyalty, they have taken our money, and they have done nothing but churn out garbage games. Now they want to blame us for it. This entire industry is just going to eat itself alive.
The gaming industry's getting shittier and shittier. All the new games suck and they're woke, and now they're getting more expensive too. Holy fuck.
Today what I want to do is I want to talk about where these prices are coming from. How apparently now video games are being made for the rich. What that's going to do for society, and also how all of this is just going to end up in flames. Before that, a word from today's sponsor, Boot.dev, longtime partner of the channel and one of the best websites if you want to learn to code. In Quest, fighting bosses, and the whole interactive stuff. Price increase up to $70 back in 2020, right when people were locked into their homes with not a lot of other options, and people just kind of forked the money over. Fast forward to today, and well, the last couple of years have been nothing but constant headlines about prices going up again and again. Games hitting $80, even $100. Nintendo being the first to break the second of the 66 seals. Sorry, I've been watching a lot of Super
Nintendo games keep getting more and more expensive. Old retro N64 games can cost like $200 to like $400 now if you want to get the game with the box and the instruction manual with it. Fucking insane.
Supernatural lately. Then came AI, then came the global trade tariffs, then it was just a bunch of other convenient excuses that just made the prices go even further up. First it was Xbox with Game Pass, then it was Xbox hardware went up, not once but twice, then PlayStation raised their hardware prices last fall, and now here we are, just 8 months later, again with PlayStation increasing the price of the PlayStation Pro to $899, which is basically brushing up against $1,000 after tax. PlayStation excused this on their website, saying, with continued pressures in the global economic landscape, we have made the decision to increase the prices of PS5, PS5 Pro, and the PlayStation Portal Remote Player globally. We know that these price changes impact our community, and after careful evaluation, we found that this was a necessary step to ensure that we can continue delivering innovative, high-quality gaming experiences to players worldwide. Man, guys, I don't know what to tell you. This is just global pressure. It's market headwinds. We just can't avoid it. I don't know what to do. It's AI taking over the world. It's tariffs. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with Sony funding over 12 live service games only to cancel half of them, burning hundreds of millions of dollars in the process. It couldn't possibly have anything to do with the critical lack of first-party output, the 8 studios they've shut down over the past couple of years, the estimated $400 million they burned on Concord, or the fact that their biggest bet, Marathon, which allegedly was around $250 million budgeted before marketing, which means it's probably closer to $400 million all in, only managed to make over just $1 million in sales, and less than a month later is now averaging 36,000 players on Steam, a platform that makes up roughly 70% of their audience. Now, yes, I know that Marathon is some divine success that we just can't see and that the developers are in it for the long haul. But I would also like to remind everybody that Highguard had a 1-year roadmap. So maybe let's just come back down to earth for a second. Surely it is global headwinds and not the fact that their live service future is now hanging on a morbidly obese Amazon that lost a foot to diabetes.
Games.
Now, while it might seem like I'm singling out Sony here, I promise you guys that I'm not, because all of these guys are making the exact same mistakes. Xbox, just the same. These guys have taken years of players' goodwill and support and money, and they have sacrificed it on an altar of live service, of subscriptions and games that nobody ever wanted to play. And now those same companies are trying to come to you, and they're trying to gaslight you into believing that these price increases are somehow out of their hands. Like this is just something of the weather. It's just the market. It's just this unfortunate reality that we have no control over. No, this is cost transference. This is them pushing accountability and the cost of their own failures directly onto the customer, all to keep their shareholders happy instead of just taking the hit, digging deep.
Goddamn shareholders making gaming fucking shitty.
And rebuilding their trust and reputation that they have destroyed. Their belief, or rather their faith in this matter, is that, well, the players are just mindless slugs. That the hardcore gaming audience that makes up 18 to 20% of players is just going to keep buying things no matter what. That their demand is basically inelastic. It's unmoving. It's never going to change. That they can raise prices, strip value, and make mistake after mistake, and that crowd is still going to show up and just fork it over. And for everybody else, well, the rest of the sheep will just fall in line too, because they're going to convince themselves these prices are temporary when they are anything but that. Because if any of this was about economic headwinds, then the prices would eventually go back down when those winds change, but that never happens. I'd like to remind people that we were once told that game prices would come down when the industry shifted into digital, but instead we just got the opposite. I'd like to also remind people that the $70 price increase didn't happen until lockdowns, when publishers and console makers were making more money than they were actually spending. They had more engagement, more investment than they ever had seen in their entire lives. Even when these guys are winning, they're still pretending like they're losing. Now, while I understand that people can and largely will just keep playing what they already have for now, the long-term effects of this are going to be brutal. We are already brushing up against $1,000 consoles, and we're not even in the next generation yet, which is likely going to be even worse. That means that this is an industry that built itself on lower and middle income households, and they are now slowly cutting those people out of the picture. Gaming becomes a luxury, hardware becomes a luxury, and I genuinely do not understand how any of these companies can look at that and think that this makes any sense.
They want us to own nothing and be happy.
This is your audience. This is the people that you need, and you're now making it harder and harder for these guys to be able to buy in at all. And, once you start pricing those people out, I don't see how this doesn't kill the console market in the next 5 years. PlayStation, especially. This is making even less sense. If their whole new strategy now is to keep their games off of PC, then shrinking your console audience is just going to destroy you. The only way that this makes any sense to me is if these guys have decided that they don't need ordinary people anymore. That wealthy households, who now make up the majority of sales, can carry the market. That these guys will just keep paying out no matter what. But that math doesn't math. Now, we already know that lower and middle income households are buying less and less hardware, and more of that burden is now falling onto richer households, which is a much smaller market to begin with. Households making over $100,000 a year now account for more than half of all of these purchases for all this gaming hardware, and the price increases that we're seeing is just going to push that threshold even higher, probably into the $150,000 or even $250,000 range when the rest of the economy keeps inflating. So now you're shrinking an audience from a little over 40% of the US households to 26, maybe even 16%, and the people below that just don't have any room to be able to close that gap anymore. Which brings me to something else, and maybe this is something that is just too hard for these guys to understand. Maybe they are just too ignorant to be able to get it, but the more expensive that hardware gets, the harder it is for players to enter, which means there are fewer people around to be able to buy games at all, and once that happens, these giant full production games that these guys are making starts making less and less sense. I want these companies to get better, I want these companies to shrink down, but I'm not hoping for all of these guys to die. But something like this does not give them a future. It strips one away. There's just not going to be anybody around to buy any of these games, and you're just going to choke out the hobby in a lot of cases. And if this is what's going to happen to the companies, imagine what's going to happen to the people that are already barely hanging on and using games as one of the very few things that they could still afford. I really just do not see how any of this works out in the long term. You know, one of the reasons why PC has been taking off over the past couple of years, getting bigger and bigger, is largely because people have been able to stretch older hardware a lot further than I think the industry thought that they would be able to. I just seen recently that over 50% of players on PC are still playing games at 1080p, which looks fantastic, by the way. I can attest to this. I was playing on 1080p not even all that long ago. But most of these guys are not chasing the highest end hardware. They're just chasing something that's going to last as long as possible. And also, they're probably not playing a lot of these AAA games anyway. But console's an entirely different beast. These guys don't have a choice. They're going to get drugged forward whether they like it or not. The games start running like garbage, looking like garbage, or the console makers or the game makers just stop making games for them entirely.
Yeah.
It's planned obsolescence, but it used to not be that bad because it was over a long period of time, and it was still a relatively inexpensive transition to be able to get into, a more exciting transition to be able to make. But no wonder PlayStation has been having such a hard time getting people off of the PS4. People can't afford it, even more so now. That's why that's why I'm struggling to understand what the broader strategy is here. Honestly, I don't even think there is one, because all this is doing is shrinking your console base, which is also then cutting off new buyers. And by extension of that, it's crashing your hardware appeal, it's killing game sales, and it's just dragging the rest of the games industry down with it. These studios are effectively like stores in a mall, and the console is the mall, but the mall just locked the doors. Now, I know a lot of people are going to hear this, and they're going to be like, yeah, whatever, okay, I'm just going to, keep getting by, I'm going to coast by on the games that I already have, or the hardware that I already have. That's true, but I think that it dodges out on a much larger issue, which is who these guys are locking out. Thinking about the new players, the new people, the young people, the students, the families that no longer can justify buying into this hobby anymore. I think we should probably talk about the people that they're locking out.
We'll just have to save up our money until we have enough to buy it, or buy it used if we can find it at a secondhand pawn shop like Chumley's in my town.
So Ontario probably just did the coolest thing I've seen any province do in a while. If you live in Ontario and are a resident here, you can now officially apply for a new life insurance policy at a...
I try to be a champion of fair pricing because honestly, it is just my biggest concern, not only as a content creator, but just as a person. I did not come from money, and no matter how much success I find or how old I get, I'm always going to be worried about how much something costs because it's just baked into my DNA at this point. Even more so with video games because they were so instrumental in keeping me out of trouble and helping me make friends and keeping me sane and most importantly, helping me save money. Like a lot of millennials, I graduated high school, immediately went to college for something that I was not cut out for, maxed out my credit cards, built up college debt, dropped out, and then found myself stuck working dead-end jobs, trying to survive, and just trying to figure out who the hell I even was. Years and years of living paycheck to paycheck. Years of feeling stuck. And through all of that, the one thing that I always had was video games. The one affordable thing. The one thing that I could hold on to. The one escape that I had. And now I'm watching entire generations and entire households get locked out of it entirely. The first people getting hit by all this are low-income households, which is exactly what is making this so disgusting to me. The people who need access to cheaper entertainment the most are the ones that are being cut off from it, especially depending on what kind of living conditions you grew up in. I got a bunch of friends of mine that would straight up tell you that if it wasn't for video games, they probably would have ended up on drugs or had a kid before they were 16. That's not me being dramatic, that's just real life in this situation. Gen Z, Gen A, students, casual gamers, low-income households, all of these groups are just getting pushed further and further out of the market because either these guys just flat out don't have the money for this, or they can't justify spending that kind of money on something that they just don't have enough free time to be able to make worth it. Especially
just buy old retro games and consoles. They're all pretty cheap nowadays, except for Nintendo games and Nintendo consoles. They're a bit more pricey.
At these prices. And man, that's just so sad to me because gaming has always had a relatively low barrier of entry. People like to shrug this entire thing off and pull the whole pull yourself up by your bootstraps routine or start parroting some TikTok life coach about how you should be spending all of your time making money. But people need joy in their lives or they start to lose their damn minds. Back when I was stuck working at a gas station, back when I had no money to go out, I couldn't go out to concerts or anything like that with my friends, and I felt like I was going nowhere, Video games were still there for me. Instead of me blowing my money on drinking or some other dumb shit, I could buy 1 or 2 games a year, and I could stretch those games forever. Night after night, I'd be playing online hockey leagues with NHL, or I'd be talking shit in FPS lobbies with my friends, dumping what felt like hundreds of hours into an RPG, and honestly, if I didn't have that, I don't know where I would have ended up.
Same.
I think what bothers me the most about all of this is that I already know where this all ends. I know exactly what their plan is. It's clear as day to see. They do not intend to leave these people behind. No. They intend to use them, to squeeze more money out of them than they ever could have through ownership. Middle and lower income households and players are just going to get pushed into one lane. Mobile, subscriptions, cloud gaming, maybe even leasing consoles like PlayStation has already floated in the past. All of it sold as access. All of it sold as convenience. All of it's going to be predatory as hell. This is a direct attack on the middle and lower class. It's a way to keep people exactly where they are, stuck in a cycle of smaller payments while owning absolutely nothing at all, paying way more in the long run because the price is broken up just enough to feel manageable while they're able to keep them on the hook forever. And the worst part is that this already works, which is exactly why these guys are going to keep doing it. Earlier, I showed a graphic breaking down where the paid audience is actually coming from, and what stood out to me is how obvious this divide really is. Hardcore players are making up the biggest share of the AAA audience, but the smallest share of free-to-play. Meanwhile, core and casual players, the groups that are far more tied to lower and middle income brackets, are making up the majority of the free-to-play audience. And then, I saw something much more uglier start to creep in. A whole category that doesn't register at all with hardcore players start showing up for everyone else. Cards and casino games. Fifth most for core gamers and third most for casual gamers. So when these companies are trying to push out ownership out of reach, they're not just trying to change the way that people play, they are trying to train these people to operate within a worse ecosystem, more exploitative ones. The exact kind of ecosystems that are built to bleed the most vulnerable people dry. This is why I try to warn people. Luckily, there is a bright side to all of this. The more inaccessible, predatory, and disgusting that these people continue to make video games, well, the more they just keep shoving players into the arms of somebody else. And in doing that, not only are they making their own problems worse, but they're also strengthening the very competition that is eating their market share. Competition that respects their time a lot more, competition that respects these players' freedom a lot more, and right now, that means indie games and Valve. It wasn't all that long ago that we were talking about the pricing crash on Steam, where AAA games were not only losing market share, but getting outsold by indie games, but also the average price of games being sold on the platform had fell with it. The median price had dropped from around $20 to just over $14. And that matters because, well, it shows that there's still an enormous demand for games. People have not lost interest in gaming. They're just being forced to be a lot smarter with their money. And when given the choice between bloated, overpriced slop and cheaper, better, more focused games, well, more and more people are starting to choose the latter. And Valve, well, they're going to take that a step further. Valve updated its regional pricing tools to help developers automate their pricing based on local purchasing power, not just flat currency conversion. And that's a huge difference. I don't think people really understand this because instead of just charging somebody what the equivalent of $20 USD is in another currency and then pretending like that's somehow fair, instead, this system is trying to reflect what $20 actually means inside that economy. In some places, $20 is not casual spending. It is a big chunk of somebody's week. So Valve is effectively making it easier for developers to price their games in a way that real people can actually afford. Now, in combination with this, and honestly, the timing couldn't be any better, but we're probably about to see another wave of even stronger indie titles because making them just got a hell of a lot more accessible and a hell of a lot more cheaper. Valve just signed a deal with the makers of Garry's Mod to build Sandbox, a version of Source 2 with simplified creation tools and features that are brought over from Unreal and Unity, while also still maintaining the kind of optimization and performance that Source is known for, making it easier to not only build great-looking games, but also games for lower-end hardware, which is a pretty big deal. An even bigger deal, though, is that it's all royalty-free, and Gary Newman, the maker of Garry's Mod and Sandbox, explained exactly why.
I used Garry's Mod a little bit when I was studying animation at Loyalist College. It was fun and easy to use.
When he said, Valve gave me a chance. I'm already rich. I don't want to fuck anyone over. I only want to give opportunities to the next generation like Valve did to me. We can all win together. Man, is that not a massive contrast from the rest of the industry? So now you're not only making it easier for smaller developers to make games of their own, make better games of their own, make more games for more people, avoid royalties, release their games directly onto Steam, but you're also letting these guys keep more of their revenue and also cut down on the kind of overhead that is constantly being shoved straight onto customers. And I think this goes to show just how unnecessary all of this is. While some of the biggest companies in the industry are trying to find more ways to make gaming more expensive, more restrictive, and more predatory, somebody else is out there trying to make games easier to make, easier to distribute, easier to make money off of, and easier for people to actually afford. That's the split. You got one side that's building ladders, and the other side is trying to build toll booths. At some point, we got to stop pretending like this is just some market or inflation or it's just bad luck. This is a choice. And if this industry keeps choosing to push normal people out of gaming, well, then they're definitely going to deserve what comes next. I remember this one time where I was uninsured, no savings, and I chipped a tooth. And for basically an entire month, I had to eat Tylenol like it was candy until I could save up to entertainment, because I know how important it is. And also, going through everything, I also know how predatory the world has become over the years. And I'm going to keep calling it out. I should keep calling it out. Anybody that has the opportunity should, every single chance they get. And, you know, when you're coming from low income, everything is chip damage. Everything is built against you. You know, I had to take a job where I worked across the country, working 14 to 16-hour days, 7 days a week, just to be able to crawl my way out over 4 years to find security. Then I stumbled into this job. Thank you, guys. No idea. Thank you, guys. But
that's what I'm trying to do right now.
The entire time, I just learned how everything is built against you. And here you now have these game companies that want to come in and they want to add another layer on top of that. No, don't let them do it. Walk away. Find something else. Find other games to support. Find other platforms to support.
Vote with your wallet.
Figure out your hardware situation. Buy a PC. Buy a small PC. A tiny build. You don't need anything crazy, man. You know, even if it's an older gaming laptop, play indie games and do that instead. This is not going to work out for these guys. Abandoning the lower and middle class is essentially just going to dry up all of your earnings. If these guys actually think that they're actually going to be able to support everything using the upper class, it's not going to happen, just because by their nature, the upper class typically does not spend that much time playing these kind of games or spending money on this kind of entertainment. They have other forms of entertainment that they spend money on. And you're just not going to get the same level of income or the same level of loyalty that you would normally see from people that are somewhere in the middle. These guys are just going to continue to lose money at an ever-increasing rate, and it's going to get to the point where it's just going to collapse these companies entirely. Maybe that's what has to happen. Maybe that's the only way for any of this to be able to fix, is for some of these guys to just straight up go out of business, or to just have their stock cut in half, their staffs cut in half, and their presence cut in half, and then just lose to somebody else. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, share it.
Yeah.
Go subscribe to that guy's channel. That's it for today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by Christmas. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. That's it for today's video, folks. Peace out. See you in the next video. Bye.